Fun.
Mhm. Welcome to the Holistic Kids Show. My name is Dane.
My name is Zula.
And my name is Iman.
We're the Holistic Kids here to educate us kids from the inside out. In 2005, the NEJM predicted that for the first time in history, our kids are expected to have, us kids are expected to have shorter lifespans than our parents. 20 years later, when nearly 1 in 2 kids has a chronic condition and mental health struggles on a rise.
CDC says 1 in 3 teens have prediabetes. 1 in 10 U.S. children have ADHD or behavioral problem. 3/4 of adolescents experience depression and anxiety.
Investing in adolescent health and well-being could transform global health for generations to come. According to Lancet, as evidence shows that the behaviors that start in adolescence can determine health and well-being for a lifetime.
So what are teens supposed to do today that they will feel they'll help pave the way for a lifetime of health?
We need to go to the experts.
And so today we have one of the top pediatricians here to help us with just that. Dr. Palevsky is a New York State licensed pediatrician who utilizes a holistic approach to children's wellness and illness. Dr. Palevsky received his medical degree from the New York University School of Medicine in 1987. He teaches holistic integrative pediatric and adolescent medicine to parents and medical and allied health professionals, both nationally and internationally. And he's also available for speaking engagements worldwide. We are so incredibly thank you for joining us today, and we're so thankful for your time and wisdom.
So thankful.
So thankful.
Thanks, boys. Let's get it done. Let's have some fun.
So you've been practicing medicine for a very long time. When natural, holistic, or integrative medicine wasn't that well known back in the 1990s, 1980s. So how did you go from being a conventional medical doctor to one that looks at the whole body?
Great. So I graduated medical school in 1987, as you said. I did a pediatric residency in New York for 3 years, and then a pediatric fellowship for a year in New York. And the first 4 years that I worked out in the field, I was an ER physician in a pediatric emergency room in the Bronx in New York. And as I started to work, I started to see things happening in the patients, in the kids, that couldn't be explained by what I was taught in my medical school and my residency. And I started to ask a question that I never asked when I was a medical student and as a resident. And the question was, I know how to help these kids make their symptoms go away, but how do I help them understand what caused the symptoms in the first place? And there was nothing in Western medicine that taught me that. So within about 2 years of being an ER physician, I started learning that ear infections may not be infections. And there was literature coming out of the European pediatric literature starting in 1990 that showed maybe we need to look at ear infections a different way and not necessarily treat them with antibiotics. And then I started talking to nurses who were in acupuncture school, who were telling me some of the principles of Chinese medicine. And then I started learning from other acupuncturists, and then I started speaking to chiropractors. And they were saying all these things about health that had nothing to do with what I was taught. So I just said, all right, I got to know where this is all coming from, because why don't I find this in Western medicine? And so I kept learning and learning and learning. And then I started to realize that there was a huge amount of literature on nutrition and how foods affected the human body. And not once in 4 years of medical school or 4 years of training was nutrition ever considered important. And so I started to realize how I could figure out why kids were getting sick, and I could first start looking at their diets. And as soon as I did that, everything opened up. And I started to realize we could change the course of children's health just by changing the way they ate. That's where it's
amazing.
That is amazing.
And that's definitely what we've been trying to empower throughout this podcast, is really what you eat is who you are.
correct. And remember, and I say this comment to kids in the office all the time. So I look at them and say, you have a car, right? Well, yeah, my parents do. And I say, if your gas tank says empty, and you come to me and you say to me, Dr. Larry, fill up the gas tank. So I fill it up. And that nice needle goes from E to F. And I give you back your keys and I say, okay, start the car and drive away. And they realize that they can't start the car and they can't drive away. And they say to me, well, what'd you do? I said, I filled your gas tank. Yeah, but what'd you fill it with? I said, what does it matter? You asked me to fill the gas tank. I filled it. Well, but what'd you put in? I said, oh, milk, juice, soda, honey. Now it's full. Yeah, but the car can't run on that. It needs gasoline. I said, well, your body's no different. You need the right food and water and other beverages to put into your body to make your car run correctly. Just filling the gas tank so that the full sign is shown on the needle is not enough. So it's very important that we choose the right foods to fill up the gas tank.
So right now there's been warnings issued that that children and teen health is now declining. It's getting worse. I mean, reports like Imad mentioned is that now like 1 in 3 teens have prediabetes, which
Correct.
is completely crazy. So then how are you supposed to get kids, and what do you think kids and parents should do if their child is starting to develop diseases and chronic diseases because of food, or to even prevent that?
So Abdullah, here's the problem. The current Western medical system does not acknowledge that food affects your health. So everything that people hear from their medical doctors is you don't need to worry about what you eat whatever you want. And if you get obese, we can give you a drug or we can do surgery and you can go on with your life thinner and not as sick because we've given you the drugs or done surgery. And so we first have to introduce the idea of responsibility and accountability. You choose what to eat to help your health get better or get worse. And so then what you're dealing with is addictions. So I can say to a child, if I told you that cucumbers were hurting your health, would you stop eating them? Oh, sure. What if I told you tomatoes were hurting your health? Would you stop eating them? Oh, sure. What if I told you cheese and milk and ice cream were hurting your health? Would you stop eating them? Oh, no, I can't stop those. So what you see is this need for kids and adults to have their fix. And what we have to do is start encouraging teens and parents to try new things, see if these recommendations might actually help. The low-fat foods are high sugar. They are going to worsen your health. High sugar foods, juices, iced teas, packaged foods, cakes, cookies, donuts, muffins, pretzels, cakes, croissants, all of these things are high in sugar. Starbucks, high in sugar. And this is not helping our children get healthy. The brain operates better on fat than it does on sugar. So if you want to eat sugar, you need healthy fat with it. But if you really want a healthy brain, you need to make sure you're eating enough healthy fat, because sugar will give you a high and then it'll crash you. And most of the foods that parents give to kids, because of the good advertising, is sugar. That's a problem.
That definitely is a problem, and especially with how the companies advertise it like it's the most amazing thing you have ever had, compared to when you actually eat it, it just really destroys your body. So it's sad how the companies don't really care about your health anymore. Instead, they care about you buying it.
So what you're saying, Zane, is that the companies are interested in profits over your health. And there are a lot of people who don't care. They just don't care. They'll eat whatever they want because somebody will save them, somebody will give them a remedy, somebody will give them a medicine, somebody will do some surgery, and they'll be good as new. But we're not doing a good job of empowering and teaching children and adults to take responsibility so that they don't need the medical doctor. They don't need a coach. They don't need anybody except good common sense. And oftentimes, I have families in my practice who are from all parts of the world. East Asia, Asia, Europe, Eastern Europe, Western Europe, Africa, Central America, South America. And when I can get these families to start eating the foods of their native cultures, most of them get better. But as soon as you start eating the American diet, processed flour products, so processed wheat and packaged foods and boxed cereals and boxed snacks and canned and jarred and bottled beverages and foods, you start to develop exactly all the things you just said: obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune disease, attention deficit disorder, sleep disturbance, problems learning in school, focus and attention problems, and many other illnesses. And it's so easy to simply change your diet so that you're eating whole foods, real foods, cooked foods, native foods to your ancestors, organic where possible, the least amount of processed foods, and that you as children get into the kitchen with your parents and learn how to cook so that you can make yourselves tasty, smelling good foods that you want to eat right away so that you'll grow strong and healthy.
So you mentioned how there's a lot of people that don't want to take control of their health. But for teens, kids, and maybe even parents that do want to take control of their health, what tips do you have for them?
Okay, good question. So number one, a healthy meal should have a good protein and a starchy vegetable and a non-starchy vegetable. That's a good lunch. That's a good dinner. And now that we're in September and most people are in the northern part of North America, you're going to get colder winters. And it's time to eat warm foods, soups and stews and purees and mashes and roasts and nourishing foods that have different colors. Now, if you're a vegetarian, then you're going to have a good legume like a bean or a lentil or a split pea or a chickpea. You're going to combine it with a grain like rice or millet or quinoa or even sorghum or teff or amaranth or buckwheat. And you're going to make it tasty, and you're going to add vegetables to it. And you're going to eat foods that are nourishing and come from good sources, from where animals are raised in a healthy way, where chickens are raised in a healthy way, where vegetables are not sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, and where you can actually enjoy your meal. And most of the kids, guys, when I work with families and they eat well, the kids get better. They feel strong, especially the kids who are out in the fields, who are playing sports, boys and girls, kids who are having long days because they have multiple activities afterwards. They feel better when they're getting enough protein, when they're getting enough fat for their brain, when they're getting enough fat for their testosterone and their estrogen, and they're eating good foods and sitting around the table with their families, no devices, no iPads, no cell phones, nothing but communication with the family. And that's what creates a nourishing meal.
And it's,
Definitely.
yeah, definitely. It's so easy to get back to how we're supposed to eat, but we just live in such a time that it's normalized to not eat that way.
Mm-hmm. Eat
Well,
that
again,
way.
that's, yeah, that's because the culture tells you that things can be done fast in a microwave, in a fast food, in a frozen food, and you don't have to take the time to nourish yourself. All you need to do is get food quick, eat it quick, and move on. And remember, as long as we tell people that your food choice has nothing to do with your health, so skin doctors tell kids and adults with skin problems what you eat has no bearing on your skin health. Lung doctors tell kids with asthma and coughs what you eat has nothing to do with the health of your airways and your lungs. As long as nerve doctors, neurologists tell patients the foods you eat have nothing to do with your brain and how it functions, we're at a loss. We're at a problem. And medical school is not the place where we're going to learn about nutrition. It's going to happen because kids like you and doctors like me are teaching people how to take responsibility in a new way. Because once you eat the food or even cook the food that is nourishing, you feel better. And once you feel better, no reason to poison yourself.
We would love to know what you are seeing in your practice that you have.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
We would love to know what you're seeing in your practice that you have.
Okay. So I see kids from birth all the way up to teenagers and sometimes in their early 20s. And I see kids who just need a checkup, who come in, parents who come in who want to talk about nutrition, breastfeeding, and supplements, parents who want to talk about sleep routines and care of their newborns and their kids. They want to talk about their kids' development. They want to talk about their kids' speech, their social skills, their habits. They want to talk about their brains, their hearts, their physical bodies. And then I have parents who come in because their children have some form of chronic illness, like you mentioned, the 1 in 2 kids in our country. And it may be more than that. It may be more than 1 in 2 kids. And these are families that have met with no answers from Western medicine. And they are looking for ways to improve the health of their kids who have asthma, allergies, autism, speech delay, bedwetting, eczema, inflammatory, like autoimmune diseases. These are families that want to find a way to reverse their kids' illness without medication. And I have a lot of fun helping those families because I watch kids go from seizures to no seizures. I watch kids go from not talking to talking. I watch kids go from not sleeping through the night to sleeping through the night. I watch kids who have constipation, who we change the diet, add some supplements, and now they're pooping all the time. And so parents get excited when they see that they can make the changes that make their kids healthier, because many parents with kids with chronic illness, guys, have to act like medical doctors. And they have very little time to act like parents. And so my goal is to reduce their management of their kids' medical illness and increase their time as just moms and dads taking care of the regular routines of their children's daily lives. And that makes the kids really, really strong, and it makes the family dynamics completely change because the parents are no longer as stressed. And there's fewer medical doctor appointments, and there's fewer specialists, and then the parents can actually have a regular life. And that's what parents want. They just want the regular life for their kids.
91% of
That's
teens.
amazing that you did that.
Yeah, and I think that so many parents around the world need to hear that message.
Yeah, definitely. 'Cause it's definitely very important.
I'm glad you think so. Go ahead, Imad.
91% of teens own a smartphone by age of 14. Like, I see a lot of my classmates. I've actually seen probably the most kindergartners that actually have phones that is walking. And we have the entire universe of information in our pockets that come with huge temptations and challenges.
Yeah, because we're now living with leash. As 3 out of 4 Americans confess to using their phones on the toilet, with 96% of Gen Zers saying they can't even go to the bathroom without their phones.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Abdullah.
And that's why I get social media, and I see it in my high school. It's been linked to poor physical health, poor mental health in college students, in high schoolers, and a lot of people who were found using excessive social media hours were found to have actually higher levels of CRP, which is actually a blood maker of information that predicts chronic disease, like heart disease, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and stroke. So basically, increased usage of social media and kids using social media all the time is actually leading and increasing their risk of chronic disease. Have you seen stuff like that?
So, boys, I talk about this subject all the time. And if I could, I would destroy all cell phones, all iPads, and all computer devices for teenagers all the way through college. And here's why. One of the most important things that needs to happen during your adolescence is the exploration of your life. You need to go out and try things. You need to go out and do things. You need to go out and have experiences. Because the doing and the trying and the having an experience is what teaches you about yourself and teaches you about life. Most of the time, parents are very, very worried about the safety of their teenagers when they're doing things and trying things and having experiences. But learning happens when you do things, when you try things, when you explore things, and when you have experiences. That's how you develop a skill set. That's how you develop a self. That's how you develop your ego. That's how you develop your confidence. That's how you develop your thought process. With the amount of time that kids are sitting on their phones, and the amount of time they're spending on social media, on video games, on devices, they are doing less, trying less, and exploring less of their own lives. Now, where does knowledge come from? Knowledge comes from doing things, trying things, exploring things, having experiences, redoing them, and doing them again, and doing them again, so that you develop a knowing. When you're on the phone, and you're on the video games, and you're on any of those devices for hours on end, you don't learn. You don't gain knowledge, and you don't gain any skill sets for you to take into your life as you get older. But you know how to look something up, and you know how to watch what some idiot is doing in a video, and you know how to watch what other people are doing in their lives while you sacrifice because you're not living your own life. And if there's something really important that has to happen in adolescence, so all the way up, to me, adolescence goes into the 20s, not just stopping at 19, is that you must learn about yourself through living life. And these cell phones and social media and video games and all of that stops kids from learning about themselves and learning about life. So when the day comes when they might be out in the world and they don't have a phone and they don't have a device and they have to solve a problem, they can't do it because the skills that were needed to figure out how to solve problems were never developed during the 5 to 10, 10 to 15, 15 to 20-year-old periods. And so what is left are obedient, weak, low testosterone, low estrogen, non-motivated, non-passionate, non-ambitious, very meek and weak young men and women. And I can see that because I see the product of so many people in their 20s and 30s who literally don't have a skill set to live life because they spent all their time when they needed to develop the skill set sitting behind a device like this for 5-6 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so they had great voyeurism. They could look at somebody else's life and go, wow, look at that. But they were empty. And most of the time, like I had a 16-year-old girl come into my office recently. She spent 5 hours a day, Monday through Friday on her phone. That's 25 hours, plus 8 hours Saturday, 8 hours Sunday. That's 41 hours a week. That's a full-time job she spent on her cell phone. And she needed help with her anxiety. Well, of course, you're going to have anxiety because you're not stepping into the world to learn how to be. And when I told her she had an addiction to the cell phone, she laughed. And that's when I knew she had an addiction to the cell phone, because her body was saying, yeah, you're right, Dr. Larry, I do have an addiction. But her brain was saying, if you take away my phone, I'll kill you. And that's an addiction. And that's what's happening with the young men and women of today. So I would take it away. I'd get the kids outside. I'd get them learning how to live life, and failing and struggling and having difficulty, so that they could learn from it and grow as individuals.
So for people
That's
wondering,
amazing, and it's insanely inspirational, like how you said that. It's so true too, because I can see it in high school. People are just like obsessed with it, and just like the statistic about the bathroom, it's so true, because they can't even like let it go for a second without constantly wanting to check it.
So Zane, when I work out at the gym, there are a lot of young men in their teenage years and in their 20s working out. And I never bring my cell phone to the weight area. I just work out. And you have to see, before the guys even finish the set, the phone is out of the pocket and they're looking at it. And they sit on the machines just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. No one can get in there to work out because they're just sitting for minutes on end, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And it is sad, because they're not developing their brains at all. And that's what these phones are doing. They're stopping brain development.
Definitely.
yeah. So then people who are concerned about this, maybe them themselves, parents, teens, kids, they're concerned about how much time they're using their phones and social media and what it's doing to them. What tips do you have for them so they can protect themselves, and how that they can actually, like you said, strengthen their minds and actually step out into their life?
Okay, so number one, Abdullah, the parents have to stop being on their phones. Because as kids, if your parents are doing something, you're likely to do it because you copy what your parents are doing. Or you'll say, no way, I'm not going to do that. So first, we got to get the parents to get on board. Secondly, we've got to get kids bored. You see, here's my analogy. In order for the heart to pump, it has to be full with blood. And once it's full, it pumps. And once it's empty, it fills. And the only way for it to fill is if it's empty. It's the same thing with your nervous system. The only way you can fill yourself with new ideas, new inspirations, new creations, new discoveries, new ahas, is if your mind is empty. But if you're constantly full with stimulation from video games, from the iPad, from the cell phone, from the social media, you never empty out. And so therefore, you'll never be able to be empty enough to fill yourself with your own thoughts, your own creations, your own inspirations, your own discoveries, your own ahas. So if you want to fill up, you have to be empty. And in order to be empty, you need to be bored. And in order to be bored, you have to really see that you have nothing to do and that you have downtime. And it's in that downtime that kids can be creative, they can have inspiration, they can do experiments, they can have ideas that they didn't think about before, they can try things, they can explore new things, they can develop new interests. But you can't do that if you're always full. And so that's my recommendation. Empty out. Go for a walk. Go for a walk on the beach. Go for a walk in the woods safely. Go for a bike ride. Sit outside. Look at the stars at night. Just don't fill yourself up with any stimulation. And when you are empty, see what happens. Because it's the emptiness that's going to fill you up. That's when you're going to get all this flood of ideas and creations and creativity and discovery. Like, wow, I never thought of that. Or, gee, maybe I should try. I never tried that. Right? And I used, as a kid, when I used to drive and ride in the back seat of my parents' car, I'd put my arm on the windowsill like this, and I would just watch as we went by. Just watch everything. And I discover new things. Like, oh, I never saw that. Oh, gee, I didn't look at that. And then it would create questions, and it would create ideas. And that's what we're missing. We're missing the development of your own ideas. And if you want to become a robot, stay on your phones. If you want to become subservient and obedient to the authorities, stay on your devices. If you want to not develop yourself as a thinking person, spend all your time on the devices. And you will find out one day that you have nothing to contribute to society because you have no skills, because you have no ways of thinking. You're not creative. You don't have inspirations. You don't have ideas. You just know what other people are doing in their lives. And you know how to talk about this game that you played, but you don't know how to do relationship. You don't know how to talk to people. You don't know how to ask questions to people. You don't know how to listen to people. You don't know how to engage because you don't know how to have relationship, because all your relationship is with strangers and characters in video games. And that's a sad state. And that's what I'm seeing in young men and women in their 20s, in their 30s, and in their teen years. And sadly, I'm starting to see it in kids below the age of 10 who are on the devices.
Yeah, I think to every teen, parent, kid, instead of pacifying yourself with the phone when you're bored or a device when you're bored, go develop yourself, improve yourself, do something beneficial to yourself. Go and actually step into your life and develop those skills for later on, because later on you'll regret using that time you used to have.
Right. 100%. Well said. And you can't get that time back.
Exactly.
Because what you're supposed to learn at 17, 18, if you're not learning it at 17, 18, when are you going to learn it? If you're not learning it at 14, 15, 16, when are you going to learn it? If you're not learning it at 12, 13, when are you going to learn it? There are very specific things that are supposed to be learned at the different ages that all three of you have right now. And you're going to miss them. And so when you're 28 and you need to engage based on a learning that's something you missed learning at 15, at 17, you're going to be left out. But you may find other people who also missed out. So you'll all sit there looking at each other, not knowing what to do anyway. And that's a sad statement. Mm-hmm. So good work, guys. Good work.
Well, thank you. It's really our
Thank you
pleasure
so much
for joining us today. Also, remember, definitely go check out Dr. Palevsky's stuff. He is so inspirational, so empowering, and he's amazing for teens and kids and even adults all around the world.
Boys, great job. Good job. Good questions. Thank you for this opportunity. You guys are doing a good job, and I hope your friends and your peers are really, really listening to what you have to say. They have to look at the diets. They have to look at their downtime. They have to look at getting out in nature. They have to look at creating an opportunity to cook and take care of themselves. And remember, develop yourself. Eat as non-GMO and organic as possible. And learn what healthy food really is. And you guys are going to teach your peers to do that. So good work, guys.
Like we said, it really is our pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Mine too.
Our pleasure.
Mine too. Did a great job.
So yeah, this is such a powerful interview. We know you are incredibly busy, so thank you so much. This was so fun.
Good work,
Now
guys. You're welcome. Go ahead, Imad.
Now to recap Dr. Palevsky's key points.
If your gas tank sits empty, what you put in matters on how your body works like your car, and we need it to run appropriately. We need to introduce accountability and responsibility. High sugar and low fat foods are going to ruin your health. Food companies only care about their profits, not your health.
Eat the least amount of processed foods. Get in the kitchen with your parents so you can make yourself a healthy meal. Should be nourishing and come from good sources. Don't eat by yourself. Eat in a community. If you want a healthy brain, make sure you are eating a healthy fat and sugar will make you sicker.
Yeah, once you eat the food or cook the food that is nourishing, you feel amazing. So there's no reason to eat chemical-filled fake food. We know we do not miss it, as for years we have only eaten.
Yeah, we've only been eating natural, organic, non-GMO food because the food that comes from the earth is one of the best foods that I can have.
Definitely.
You know, boys, you can actually see that you're eating healthy. I can see it in the quality of your skin. I can see it in the brightness of your eyes. I can see it in your smile. I can see it in your auras. You can see that you exude health. And if you don't live by it, you're not going to get other kids to lean in and go, why do they look so healthy? Why do they look so fit? Why do they look so good? And you're going to make that very available for your peers. Good work, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Dr. Palevsky is not a fan of iPad or phones before college because kids need to have experiences trying and doing things to help you develop a self and skill set, confidence, and your thought process. You need to go out and live your own life. You need to learn about yourself, parents. Please stop being on your phone.
We need to be okay with being empty to fill ourselves with our own inspirations. You need to be bored. In that downtime, you can become creative, develop new ideas, exploring and develop your ideas. If you want to be a robot, stay on your phone. If you want to think for yourself, get off of it. So thank you everyone for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Zayn Ansari.
I'm Abdullah.
And I'm Imad.
Follow my family and I on social media, Holistic Mom and D, and look out for our new best-selling book, The Teen Health Revolution, releasing November 13th. So definitely pre-order it today. Kids need to learn from other kids. Please download our podcast on iTunes and leave a review so other kids and families can benefit. We need to create a healthy future for all of us and the planet. Join us next week for another episode of the Holistic Kids Show, where kids are empowering kids.
Thank you, everyone.
everyone.